I give credit to my subcontracting agencies for the boots on the ground. So we contract with 26 community action agencies in our state, and then we distribute the funds based on population data and average energy usages in the area, and then figure out the percentage and then go that route, so that we are hopefully addressing the needs of everybody based on census levels. And when the pandemic hit, you bet, it came in, it hit, and all of a sudden everybody's home. So our agencies needed to shift from a base where everybody came to them to working from home and remotely, because we just don't stop. That's just the way it works. Fortunately enough, in our state, we had some funds that we could, some discretionary funds that we could assist with our agencies, and we did. We used discretionary funding to help them get laptops and Wi-Fi, and one agency even later in the pandemic built an isolation kind of place for people who didn't have technology and couldn't work with it, but still needed to come in so that they could be isolated. We are opening back up, and people have opted for a hybrid model. So you have some that continue to work from home and others that are in the office and are still allowing electronics to electronic signatures, and we're bringing in all of our documentation electronically and that kind of stuff. It happened in stages in our state, because we did have the moratoriums that went into effect and that were eventually released. All of our moratoriums are off now. Our utility partners have been amazing in working with us to ensure that those that are off and are eligible for Liheap, they're still not turning them off until we can get to them. And so our utilities are amazing. Some of them even followed suit with COVID relief out of their own pockets, some of our larger providers, which was also amazing. But we, our program in an average year pre-pandemic, we'd serve approximately 68,000 households in our state. And that has steadily increased. The reason I looked to the other screen is because I'll run you down. So 67,209 in a non-pandemic year. First year of the pandemic, we jumped to over 90,000 households served. The following year of the pandemic, we are at 109,000, almost 110,000 households served. And in this program year so far, we have served 68,000 households, and we're still running strong. And then last year, we also had a heat dome set in over Washington State. We had 100 and I believe 20 deaths from heat related emergencies. And so Liheap, being a block grant, allowed us the flexibility to put in a cooling component. Along with our cooling component of providing air conditioning, we added a hardship benefit of $500 to help cover those costs. And then we also implemented an arrearage program where we pay up to $2,500 to get somebody to zero. And so if you put it all in combination, we have been able to bring many folks who we have never served before to a balance of zero, to allow them to move forward with their lives now that the pandemic has receded some. Of the 68,000 households we've served so far, 54,000 are electric. 9,000, a little over 9,000 is natural gas. 504 would be oil. So oil is very low in here, and we're still working to get those changed out. And almost 2,000 for propane, and that's some of our rural areas. And then about 2,000 for wood. HHS, Health and Human Services, was very gracious in our plan. So what we did was we have wildfires that impact the county that they're in, and then surrounding counties based on wind patterns will be choked off by smoke. And then you throw into that rising temperatures that are unsustainable, and you can't go into a cooling center because you can't be sick and then be around a whole bunch of people. So as long as whenever our governor, not as long as, whenever the governor issues a state of emergency in Washington state that's attached to a wildfire and the smoke that impacts those counties, we are allowed to provide air purification. But that is strictly to wildfire emergency declarations in our state. So you could stay home, stay cool or warm, and filter the air. So it's a wonderful way to set that up, and HHS was incredibly gracious in letting us set up that plan. We have passed what we call the CETA Act, so the Clean Energy Transformation Act, which means that we will be 100% as a state carbon neutral, I believe by 2045 is the time frame. And there's inside that act, we have, I call it Section 12 because it's Section 12 of the act, is the low income version. And what we are working for as a state is to get everybody in the state to a 6% energy burden. And so that is a statewide effort that stretches across a lot of things that we do. Our Utility and Transportation Commission, our utilities are in the stakeholder groups and answering questions, and Commerce, of course, is tracking all the data and implementing and monitoring. Although we have received state funding for Liheap, we have, a Liheap type program. We have received state funding for our water assistance program as well. So we find that our legislators and our governor are fully behind supporting Washington residents. I mean, Commerce, we build stronger communities, and we believe that, every step that we take does that. At least that is our mission and our vision. This is the really interesting part, and I find this interesting because I consider myself I'm a data nerd. I really am. I'm a data geek. I'll get in. So depending on where we are in the state, we can have your typical incomes be around 2 or 3%, and our low income are well over 10 on average, and they're paying the same amounts. So with CETA, there's rate reductions. We have weatherization programs to tighten up homes and reduce energy burdens. There's ratepayer funded programs that are being implemented, all complement Liheap, and it's just it's so wonderful to have a statewide focus on where to drive. I can give you one from yesterday that we worked on for water, and this translates very easily into Liheap. I've been doing Liheap for several years, and water is brand new. In Liheap, we have people that come to us and say, "My furnace isn't working." Well, it's freezing outside, so we can very easily, thanks to the flexibility of our program, get somebody out to look at it and repair it and have it up and running as quickly as possible for the residents. Yesterday, through the water program, we had an 86-year-old customer, deaf and partially blind, and her disabled son is her caretaker, that a city had condemned the home for no water. And so we literally saved her housing, by paying all of her arrearages to get her water turned back on, which in turn released the, I always say this word wrong, condemnation. I don't think that's right. Anyways, we reversed the status of condemned on her home. So, I mean, she's housed now because we were able to pay that balance. In Washington, we have protections against turning off medical devices. So even if they're behind, they can't be shut off if it's life-saving equipment, which is a beautiful law that I think every state should have. When we come in and we receive those, then we're knocking those balances down, or we're bringing them to zero, so that it's one more thing they don't have to worry. We have received letters and thank yous that say, I don't have to make a decision between heating my home and buying my medication. I didn't have to decide between my rent or my food. And it reminds you of all, people often say, well, you're just a government bureaucrat. And that may be true, and it may be the minutia of everything that we do, but in effect, it makes no difference from my director to the accounting, to the budget office, to the contracts. This is the end. We save people's lives, we save people's homes, keeping people cool in the summer and warm in the winter, just creates a healthier environment, and the ability for our residents and our customers to not have to choose between life-saving medications or eating healthy food or paying their rent, because they don't have to worry about this bill for this time frame. State plans on how we're going to operate the next year and doing the public hearings and the reporting on that. Then the federal reporting so that the federal level can see what we're doing. Then we have our state legislative level, and we don't call it advocating, we call it educating, because we're not allowed to advocate with federal dollars. We're allowed to educate. So I only can provide facts. We at Commerce built a dashboard that shows the disproportionate communities of health. I'm sure you're aware, Justice 40 type work. And we overlaid all of our Liheap data. Over the top of that, we put federal congressional districts. Inside that, we put our state legislative districts. So anybody who comes and asks for, well, what are you doing for my constituents? I can show you. I can show you by year. I can show you total since we started. Well, 6 years back is as far as we go. Have to keep, but I can show you the impact to your district of Liheap dollars, of federal funds. It's very powerful in that we can show a map, and then on that map, you will see how much money, the average income of a typical family, the median income of a Liheap recipient, and energy burdens. Plus the census data sits on the side. So you can see demographically who's served. And that piece helps us with our outreach. If we know who we're missing, we know who we have to contact. And without a proper data analysis, you don't know.